So, hi Timothy, how are you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing? My connection had hung up. I don't know what happened.
Well, Timothy, I was scared we accidentally blew you out. You know, we beam in and beam out like we're Star Trek
Yeah.
around here. And
And you know
I,
what happened? The time you leave out because of connection, all our guests
everybody,
vanished. And you were like, what
Oh, it was
happened?
so.
I don't know.
Also, it wasn't
everybody
just
blew
me.
out. And Kid and I
Yeah.
are sitting here staring
And I
at
was
each
like, what's going on? I don't know.
other. So, yeah, we thought we blew everybody. So we call this beaming in and out. So I don't know if you knew Star Trek, but my senior executive producer, Nick, he started this. I'm beaming in, I'm beaming out. Um, So that's what we do around here. But all of a sudden, everybody beamed out on us, and we're going, "What
uh,
happened? How are you doing, Tim?
yeah, I'm
Welcome.
fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
All
How you
right.
guys
So
doing?
can you
Thank you guys
can
for
you can you
having me.
keep the
Can
mic a
you?
little closer?
We.
Oh,
It's hard to
oh,
hear you.
I'm
Yeah.
actually using my. I'm actually in the car, so I was working, so I'm actually using my iPods, my
Okay.
Okay.
AirPods.
So share
So
with
can
us what do you work at?
well, I'm actually doing some freelancing work now, but I'm entertainer. I'm an actor.
Okay. So do you have
And
a podcast?
yes, I do. I have a podcast called Kings of Culture podcast with five of my other friends. We're on hiatus right now because of the pandemic. So I went and I did like two segments of my own podcast where I interview two people that's in the jail system, and
Okay.
I just want to get their opinion on what's going on with them right now because even though people are in jail, they are different. They go through the same thing as well, and they're catching the coronavirus, and it's kind of funny because they can't have visits. So how are they being exposed to the virus? So my thing was just to have them express and show what they're going through at this time.
And you know, you have to ask that question. How are people who are secluded
Yes.
in certain variations, but in a prison, they are not secluded. This is what I try to tell people. The prisons are probably one of the biggest mass transit systems of many things. Okay. I mean, we've even seen here in North Carolina where one of the prisoners managed to have all kinds of things brought into him, even a cell phone, right? And
Mm,
they couldn't even, you know, as much as they searched people and everything, they found out the cell phone was brought to him inside of a basketball that was given to him. So so the smuggling in and out of things, right? But if you think about just even that, you know, the prison system is a cesspool of a petri dish, right?
yes.
Because it is secluded to a point, but things go in, right? More
Right.
than they come out, things go in.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
So you got to ask yourself how. Okay, so the people who work there, right?
Hmm.
And can a carrier be someone that you don't know is a carrier for 2 weeks? Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Right. So we know that. So could it have been possible that somebody brought it in? So there was a lot of unknowns in the beginning. And we actually, I think we were one of the first to raise the red flag about prisons on our
Hmm.
show. So your
Oh,
concern
that's
is
dope.
very legit. But
Yeah.
one of our not our guests, one of our board members used to work in the prison system, and
Hmm.
that was one of his concerns. And then we've had other people bring it up as well. So, oh yeah, because it is a lockdown situation, but
Hmm.
you still bring a lot of things in. So,
Exactly.
so things are brought in by food. All right, things are brought in by clothing. Things are brought in just. And you said that it's not like they had a lot of visitors, but for 2 weeks before they closed down, they did.
They did. Yeah, they did.
Right. So they could have had it for 2 weeks and not know it
And
themselves.
not knowing it. Yeah, as
So,
well.
so that's the situation with uh, this particular virus. That's why it made it so dangerous, right? As the Dr. Tula had shared with us in the very beginning, back in early March when he first started coming on our show, the fear isn't that the virus itself; is that it's a ghost. And Dr. Sagoo shared this as well. We're fighting a ghost. For 2 weeks, people are spreading it and don't know it. And you can't control that kind of fire, right? You just
No.
But so
You
Tim,
gotta just wait it out and see what happens.
well, but that's not something you want to wait out on, right? That's not, especially if you have the facts and you know that it could spread like this. This is something that you want to take a tighter reactive solution to, and maybe they should have, because they've known about this since January. The
Probably
government
before that.
they had the facts. So even if they, and it probably would have violated every prisoner's rights, and they probably would have filed a complaint after complaint, but they really could have and should have shut down the prisons first. Right?
Like what I would say is that what they are doing is they're saying, "Oh, we're freeing people," but my concern with that is that, all right, so you're going to free someone who's probably been locked up for maybe 4 or 5 years, been in prison for maybe 4 or 5 years. Where's he going to go? He's going to go home to his family?
Freeing them is not going to fix the problem.
Exactly.
So containment, treatments, we don't have a vaccine, isolation, unfortunately, but, isolation in a promising way, give them each their own TV set, give them each their own educational resources if they want to educate and take classes. But isolation, unfortunately, in this petri dish environment is the only way. So, and that's how you're going to do it. How unfortunately, probably right now, if people are infected, just now treat them. And we've discovered treatments. Symptomatic treatments are the way we've been able to save people. Early treatment, early detection, and early treatment. And hear me out on this. And this is what people don't understand, because they're not educated. Okay, facts are very important. For the first 2 weeks that you have it, that you have no symptoms, you feel fine, you feel great, right? You have no symptoms for 2 weeks. And there's a National Geographic article on this, and it was out in February. So definitely data was out there about this. So you've got something, watch this. I don't know if you know what this, where are you from, Timothy?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's very, we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is what the coronavirus looks like. Do you know what this is?
I have no idea.
You've never seen one of these?
Oh, yes, yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
You hate these things, don't you? They hurt your feet, right?
Yeah.
They're very sharp and spiky, and that's what the corona is. And it comes in millions into your body. And what it does is it goes into the lungs. Ground zero usually becomes the lungs, your throat, and ground zero. But it's there for 2 weeks doing what? Tearing. It spins around. This thing with millions of spikes are inside your soft tissues, tearing at things, making it look like a honeycomb. And I don't have my honeycomb with me today, but making it look like a honeycomb with all these holes. All right. So for 2 weeks, that's what it did. Well, when things tear at you, what happens inside you?
It breaks apart your body, and now your body, other certain tissues have to take up for another, replace another tissue.
Exactly.
I'm not a doctor, but
no, but you understand when you start tearing the inside of your body, that happens infection, right? You got all of these holes for infection. So watching an autopsy of 12 patients, which I've done, to find out why do they die, it's infection. But think about this. For 2 weeks, those corona balls are inside your body, tearing for 2 weeks while you're feeling good. So you're feeling good, you're doing things, probably you should be resting, right? So this disease is tearing at you, and all of a sudden you hit a wall. And you hit a wall because it did all the damage it could. And there's nothing left.
Especially if you already have a prior problem with something like a bad immune system, diabetes. So you already got damage going on with whatever you already have.
Exactly.
Plus this. So it kind of breaks your body down quicker for people who have bad immune systems.
Right. But it still took 2 weeks, and then your body hits the wall. And it hit a wall because all the damage is done. This is why I tell people, by the time you have symptoms, it's too late. See, nobody would listen to our show because they were listening to all the fake stuff, like the president saying, "No, it's not airborne." He had, because I had the same document on my desk. It was aerosol. What is aerosol?
I have no idea.
Aerosol is airborne. It's just another word.
Oh.
But he typically used a word that they use when they want to get around something legally, right? So that he could calm the nation. It's not airborne. Don't worry about it. Just, you could be this close. And then the next time you hear somebody talk about, oh, you need to be this close. Oh, you need to be.
I
They
think that our government had no idea of how to treat this, what was going on with it. I think that they were just doing everything on the fly.
No, I think they knew.
You think so?
They've had it on their desk for 2 months before it hit us. They had the information. They chose not to. Why do you fire a pandemic team and then a pandemic hits and you don't rehire them back? Why?
That's a deeper thoughtful question though. If you're saying they already knew and then because the way it looks like they had no idea what they were doing. People were just dying.
No, they had all the. I love this this thing that he says now, that I didn't have all that information. They withheld all the information with me, and I find that really iconic, considering that he goes around saying, "Well, we're doing better than what they predicted." Predicted in what? Predicted in what? Ooh, yeah, you've heard the president say that many times. We're doing better than what they predicted. They predicted.
I kind of
but
him
predicted
out.
in what? So I had the same documents on my desk that he had. He probably had more, right? I had to go dig and beg for these documents. He probably had more. But this is what bothers me. They did know. They were more worried about the Dow and their own pocketbook. So if you go back and look, they were cashing in on their stocks before they closed the country down. Okay. And not just certain ones. I'll guarantee you there was a lot more than a few that were panned out. But you got Giuliani, ex-mayor Giuliani went and invested, and this is public, invested $2 million in hydroxyquine in February. All right.
So he knew.
So, but hydroxyquine really doesn't fix you. All right. It's one of the drugs that might fix you. But he invested in hydroxyquine, $2 million. Then March comes, the president makes Giuliani his science advisor. Now, if I were to assign a science advisor in a pandemic, I think I would hire an NFID person, National Foundation of Infectious Disease, or the infectious disease doctor that saved Nigeria from Ebola, right? If I were going to get
not someone who's investing into the drug. So not someone who's going to make a profit off the drug.
Right. So then he closes the country down, and a week later goes, we got hydroxyquine that will save us. And then what he was trying to do was, but what a lot of people don't know or don't remember, and this is also public knowledge, in 2018, hydroxyquine company paid Trump's lawyer $2 million to endorse them.
Wow.
To lobby for them. This is all public knowledge. People just forget about this stuff, right?
So are you saying it's a conspiracy?
No, I'm just saying these are the facts. I'm not. You make your own story. I'm just saying this is the data. This is the data and the facts. Okay, these are public knowledge. This is not me making anything up. But if I were to take timeline, all right. So all of a sudden, he's pushing hydroxyquine because the FDA won't approve it. His best friend, who he just signed as a science advisor, invested $2 million in it. He was invested in it in many, many ways. 2 years earlier. Why hydroxyquine? When we found out from a doctor in Harvard or 2 other doctors in India that just your standard asthma medications work.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the doctors at Harvard who could not get any funding had several patients, and he was treating them with asthma medication, respiratory medication. Every one of his patients survived. Dr. Arthur here in North Carolina did systematic treatment. Systematic treatments are what? Things for respiratory problems. what would you recommend for respiratory problems? Your standard stuff: steroids, asthma medication, maybe some, antihistamines, a breather, right?
So
Basic.
how was everything down where you at in North Carolina? How was like
We're stupid.
life?
Stupid.
Is it
Don't come
open?
down here. Yeah, it's stupid unless you got a place to live. Don't come down here, because we kind of reopened, and we opened up with rules for 10 people per event, and we hosted a big race car event last weekend with 4,000 people crammed together with no masks. So I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, stupid. How are things up in New York? My son's up there. He moved up there right as it locked down, so all his stuff is still here, including his car. So
I think
how is
everyone have their own opinion. Well, I've been out, so everyone have their own opinion of it, but I don't think everyone is following the rules because it's so much people, and the way New York is built, like it's overpopulated. So even just to go outside to get some air, you're around someone.
yeah.
So you kind of got to stay secluded in your house, which I doubt anyone wants to do, especially for what's been almost 3 months now. It'll probably drive you insane. They're slowly opening things. I won't say it's, and they have NASCAR like sporting events, but they're slowly opening things. But anything that was owned by the government, like basketball courts, things like that, recreational fun has been, you can't really get into the park.
That
But
doesn't
like
make any
Central,
sense.
it's to me it's kind of weird because if you go like to Central Park, there's people running, there's people working out, so there's no social distancing there. And then they say we had the highest amount of cases, which I can believe because New Yorkers are not going to listen to rules.
Well, it's not just listening. So first off, you were the international gateway.
Mhm.
So it came in through the international gateway in volumes. And the other thing is you're highly concentrated. It's not that you wouldn't listen to the rules. The Americans don't, but it's because it's against your freedom of civil rights, supposedly. But what most Americans don't realize is that our Constitution writers put in a pandemic clause a long time ago. And it is, you have no rights when there's a pandemic. But nobody wanted to be the unpopular leader and tell you you had no rights. So what they did is because they were damned if they do and damned if they didn't. I guess they decided, let a few things happen and let a few people get infected and die, and then we'll look like heroes when we come back. But because they know people just don't adhere. But New York isn't the worst for not listening. They're the worst impacted for not listening. Does that
Yeah,
make
but I agree with you, and also the leaders haven't been great as in misinformation. Well, like you tell someone, hey, we're going to open up the state, we open up the city back in, let's say, May 25th. Stop giving us dates.
so
Let's
that
just, that's a problem. Let's just see what happens. Stop giving us dates. In my
two
opinion,
weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Have you ever seen that movie Money Pit? And Tom Hanks
no,
goes, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. No, no. People run out of patience. And this is what I told people in the beginning.
exactly.
Do me a favor. I want you to do me a favor. It's free on IBM TV if you go to our movies. But I don't know if it costs anything anywhere else. But there's a movie called 93 Days. Okay. 93 Days is a true epidemic movie in Nigeria. It was a true story about how Nigeria could have been, you know, how congested Nigeria is, right?
Yes.
And Ebola came into their country.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you know how bad Ebola is, but it is something that it
Yeah,
spreads.
I remember Ebola.
So this was an incident that, well, Ebola, there's no cure for Ebola. Ebola still exists. Okay. Ebola
Oh,
still
I didn't
exists.
know that. I didn't know that.
No virus just goes away. All right. But what we do is we contain it, and then we control it with screening, testing, treatments, and isolation. There is no vaccine for that, just like there's no vaccine for HIV, right? It didn't go away. We just
Didn't go away.
no,
But we control it now.
we control it. That and we kept telling people that's what we're going to do with this, but the problem is we have to stop the spreading, right? Once you stop the spreading, then you can. But nobody wanted to listen to that. There was too many fights. But look at the stats right now. We're sitting worldwide 5,847,000 and climbing daily. And the reason why we're climbing is two reasons. One, we've increased the amount of testing that we're doing. And two, we've started reopening. And many countries that have not kept to their convictions of and standards during lockdown have suffered, right? So they're starting to see a high increase. But the U.S., can you see this?
Yeah, I can see. It's not. It's a little blurry because I'm going through my phone and I'm not like the.
Okay, yeah, it's hard to
I'm
see.
kind
So
of
I will
blind.
let you know the U.S. trumps everyone by 1,783,000 new cases. It was 1,500,000 last week. The next country, which we knew was climbing fast, and they weren't in second place last week, they were actually third or fourth, is 41,000 infected. All right,
Yeah.
so we're more than more than
Wow.
we're 1,000,007 versus 41,000. So figure that one out. It takes more than 10 countries, the top 10 countries combined, to be with where we're at.
And
All right.
also, Kim, we know that a lot of countries are doing underreporting. That is also the case, and that's why we don't have real numbers. And you
Right.
know that a lot of theories are coming up from different countries, especially China, and we are
Right.
not sure what's going to happen and what are the chances of coming
The,
back and those things.
the other thing that increases the knowledge of the cases is the amount of testing that you do, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
if you do more tests, of course, you're going to determine more people who are
More
infected.
people because there's people just walking around with it and don't know it.
Right. But when I look at the amount of deaths that and it went up from, it was 100,000 on Monday. So we leaped to 102,000 deaths. So it was right at 100,000 on Monday. So we're that doesn't sound a lot for the whole country, but when you look at all the other countries,
Other countries, they have,
highest is
yeah. And to think
25.
it's like, well, I would say, like Spain is they're not as big as us, but Russia is a big country.
Yeah.
So I don't know how big Germany is.
But look at how
How
many deaths they have, right? But what we do is we kind of go over here to tests per million, but deaths per million, right? So if you look at deaths per million, Spain still is a lot more than us. The UK, they're really climbing fast. Italy. So, but if you scroll down, what I like to do is look at the countries that were barely any. India is 3 deaths per million. My favorite is Hong Kong because they really didn't shut down. They just put strict restrictions on their public, but they never shut down. Malaysia never shut down. Um, Iceland, if we can find Iceland. Iceland,
Iceland is way down, way down,
way down.
way down. Both Hong Kong and Iceland are way down.
Right.
Yeah,
Iceland,
Iceland I think gone up a little bit.
there it is. So
Yeah, there's that.
Iceland, if you look at, of course, a very small population, 341,000. They're showing a total of 10 deaths in their whole country.
wow.
They never shut down from day one. They never shut down. All of their kids still went to school. Their prisons didn't have to empty out or anything like that. They operated, but this is what they did. The first person that tested positive, they traced.
Yeah, and they have a pandemic too.
They had a pandemic policy and team. All right. So their country already knew, share your resources. The hospitals have this. This is what we do. And they had a pandemic policy of testing. They didn't test people who were already sick. Screw that. They're sick. Treat them.
They're already sick. Treat them.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't care that they have the flu or COVID. Treat them. They took the test kits and they tested people who weren't.
So they basically use their testing wisely. Instead of our country saying we don't have enough testing, well, you're already testing people who are already sick. You could use that on people who aren't, so we keep them away from the spread.
But that was the difference between having brains, an infectious disease doctor in control, a pandemic policy, and a pandemic team. And they never closed down. All of their restaurants still operated. All of their businesses still operated. So their impact economy-wise is us. Economy-wise, they're going to go under the same as other countries because we didn't. But we had the same information they did. We had the same knowledge, but we instead waited and dragged our feet and waited. And now they want to blame the governors for everybody dying. It's Governor Kuma's fault that all these people are dying. No, it's not. No, it's not. Our leader had no policy in place to follow. The governors are cleaning up the mess. The governors were left with a mess. Okay, here's the mess. Your state's dying fast. What do? Do you listen to the president anymore? No, you go in and you clean it up the best you can. Right.
That's true.
But it's not one.
We listen to the governor. Yeah, we listen to the governors.
Your governor is probably one of the smartest, best governor. Do you know that the president tried to punish him because he asked for more PPE supplies for your state? Yeah. Your doctors didn't have enough PPE. So do you know what Trump did? Instead of picking up the phone and calling a hospital in North Carolina that had more PPE and could have shared it, he Twittered and said, I gave New York this. I gave New York that. I gave them all of these things. They want more. What do they want? Flowers? And I go, what president Twitters and tries to insult people when they're trying to survive? Who does that? And you got a man who's struggling to save every life that made poor decisions because he had to clean up fast. I'm not saying every decision he made was good, but he had no other choice. The elderly situation. The elderly were tested positive at the hospital, but they had no place to go. He wanted them to go back to their elderly home and be treated, but the proper PPE put in and resources put in, but nobody listened to him. They just let them go back to the home, and the home didn't do their precautions. So yeah, the whole elderly home got sick and died. But people are not looking at the whole story. They're looking at the fractions of the story. But what you're doing for the prisons, I commend you. Thank you for taking that initiative. I would like to introduce you to a friend of mine that works with the prisons. And that has been his concern. He is a former NFL player, and he.
What's his name?
Huh?
What's his name?
His name is Tommy Harris. And
Tommy Harris?
Uh-huh.
He played for the Panthers?
No, not the Panthers. He played. But he was the highest paid defense player in the world. Okay. Yeah, he was the highest defense. But Tommy Harris retired a few years ago. His wife died. His daughter died. Things were just clouding him. But he's now a musician, and his music airs on IBM TV. So you can hear his music on IBM, and he's good. He is really good. He's country western. But you've got a music show too. We didn't even get a chance to talk to that. We got off on a tangent, so I'm going to give you another day to come in. But tell us real quick about your music.
I think we have to talk to Timothy about the acting and other stuff he's doing. I checked the website, and there are a lot of amazing stuff he's doing on.
Yeah. So what are you doing music-wise?
Well, my girlfriend, she's a singer. My girlfriend's a singer and a songwriter. And we had a company called Bonding First, and we actually do give backs. We started a give back last year on her birthday. We gave school supplies to the kids, and we want to do another one. We don't know what's going to happen with the pandemic, but we have a lot of. It's an entertainment company where we do movies, music as well. Podcasting was something that we started with.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you, Arifa.
Oops. So you do music? You do?
No, I don't do music. My girlfriend does music. I'm an actor.
Okay, and then you're doing this podcast for prisoners.
Yes, I did. It was a segment. It was a pandemic. As entertainers, we was out of work. We had nothing to do. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna get on. My cousin, he's in prison. He called me with concerns on how they're being treated and people in there catching COVID. And so I decided to, use my platform and put that to the world.
No,
so I did one segment. I teamed up with my other friend who's also in prison, and they spoke on what they're going through, what they want to do when they come home. I speak to him every day. He tells me that people are getting released and they're coming right back to jail because they have nowhere to go.
So that's what we don't think in this country, right? This is supposed to be a reform system.
We
Prison
take off
is supposed to be reform. There is no reform. There is no place to go to when you get out, to start off in an apartment, to start off with a job. We just throw you into the fire. And granted,
Throw
maybe
you into the world.
but maybe that's they consider that equal rights because
exactly.
Because I was thrown to the wolves as well. When I got out of college, I was thrown to I put myself through school. So maybe people think that's equal, but I don't think that's smart. All right. I think if you're going to take somebody out of reform, yeah, it's all about money. But I think if you take somebody out of reform, you don't put a $10 in their pocket and put them on a bus. You don't do that.
And that's basically what they do. And then you got to think, majority of us, we come from poverty. So
right.
just
Sorry.
Look at it like this.
Hi everyone.
You're right that they come out of poverty. You're right.
Yeah. So let's just say I have a family member who gets released from jail early because of the pandemic, right? I was laid off from my job, so I'm struggling and trying to figure out how am I going to take care of my family. And then I'm happy to see my loved one to come home, but I don't have any space for them. I don't have any resources, any money to take care of them. What do they do at this aspect? Now, if they go out and they commit a crime to take care of themselves, you're going to put them back in jail, and you're going to say, "Hey, well, we freed you. What more do you want? What more do you want?"
Yeah. Oops. What happened? And so we lost one. He'll come back. So.
Adifla, are you there online?
Adifa?
Can you hear it?
Adifa?
Timothy back there?
She